Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Cowboys of the Osage. I'm old Cody over here, and I got my co-host with me, as always, rodeo historian, Mr. Jimbo Snively. Hey, Jimbo, what do we got going on today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in the Osage, man. We've got Mr. J. Adcock with us today, who is absolutely one of the best rawhide braiders in the United States, bar none. And he's got a beautiful display here at the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum of all his work. But he's also, this fall, at the Traditional Cowboy Arts Association is having a art show and sale at the Cowboy Museum down in Oklahoma City. And he's the newest member. And they've only got 4 members in the entire world of rawhide braiders, and he's one of them. So that just tells you a little bit about his work. So we'd like to welcome Jay to the show today.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm honored.
Jay Adcock, glad to have you. Gonna have a big showing at the Cowboy Hall of Fame this fall.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're looking forward to it.
We're real excited about that, too. Hey, Jay, let's start off early. Have you been a cowboy your whole life?
Yes, sir, primarily. That's about it, all I've ever done.
Where'd you grow up at?
Over around Ramona, Oklahoma, just east of here. And as a kid, moving around with my mom and stepdad, we moved from Texas to Wyoming through my grade school, junior high years, and I ended up coming back here to Ramona and graduated high school.
So what took you guys to all those different places while you were growing up?
Working in the oil field.
Following the work.
Yes, sir.
You got to go where the work is.
That's right. So you followed the oil field, but you wanted to be a cowboy.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I was fortunate enough to be around some very good people. Like when they went to Wyoming working in the oil field, got to know some good ranching families up there, and we're still good friends to this day.
That's cool.
We'll go up there and stop every once in a while.
Right. A lot of big ranches up there, isn't there?
There is. There's quite a few. Sure is. And I was fortunate enough, to take off when I got out of high school and went and made another tour up through there.
Yeah.
You bet.
What's the winters like up there? I've never really done a winter up there. I got snowed in up there during the spring one time, but I've never really done a winter. What is cowboying like up there in the winter?
Pretty chilly. It is. It's cold and I'd spent some winters in winter in northern Nevada and then right there in Evanston, Wyoming. And it's pretty cold, but the ground freezes. You don't have to worry about mud till spring. That's the best part of it.
Well, at least there's something good about it. So how do the guys take care of their cattle all winter up there?
Feed a lot of hay. And on a smaller place, you might be feeding hay all winter. And if you're on a cowboy crew on one of those places, you were horseback every day, regardless of what was going on. That's what you did, is follow feed wagons, which wasn't always fun. There's a lot of days that I'd rather be feeding hay.
Did they feed a lot with horse-drawn wagons?
They did. The Martin family that I was fortunate enough to spend time with there in Evanston did feed with teams and sleighs. Sure did. They've moved to some lower country now, and I don't think they do anymore, but I'm sure there's some that still do up in that part of the world.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty cool when you see those big draft horses and stuff pulling those big wagons full of hay and feed and stuff. You see a few pictures of that once in a while.
Yes, sir.
My dad used to do that with our steer horses in the winter, Jimbo.
Yeah.
Said it made them better steer horses.
Yeah, probably did.
And the young ones, we taught every one of them how to drive, behind driving lines or.
Yeah, right.
Or
that's one of the first things you do, when you start working a steer horse is driving, You
would think that would be one of the first things you do once you've trained one or two of them anyway.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure. So then you moved down to Texas after the Wyoming.
Well, went up there before when I was in grade school. I wasn't very old when we lived in Texas, and then after I left Wyoming, I came down here and finished high school there at Ramona, And then got graduated and spent some time here in Osage County working for Oklahoma Land and Cattle before they'd sold out to the Mormons, to Sooner Land and Cattle. Lived up at 4 Acre the first time.
We had Harvey Payne on here just the other day, and he told us all about how the Mormons got all that land up there and
I
everything.
bet you thought you was in Wyoming some of those winters up there at 4 Acre, didn't
boy,
you?
I tell you what, it's even tougher than right here in Pawhuska, isn't it?
Oh, man, it's a different world up there.
It is.
It gets a lot colder up there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's not much there between there and Canada. A few fences.
I've been up there and it'd be snowing and come back to town and the sun be shining.
Oh, boy. I remember it would have been, when I was, the second time I worked there, would have been the winter of 93, I believe. I think there was like 40 inches of snow up there in 2 different storms that were about 3 weeks apart, and it was a booger. Really cold.
Yeah.
You got to be around a whole bunch of different cowboy cultures growing up because, here in Oklahoma, it really is a lot different here in Oklahoma, the people and the way they do things than they do up in Wyoming, than they do out in West Texas, than they do a lot of the other places you grew up. So you got to be around a lot of things, and you got to see a lot of different things and a lot of different ways that people operate.
Oh, yes, sir. I've been blessed there. Like I say, growing up in a ranching family and had some really good hands to grow up around there, and then go to Wyoming as a kid and come back here. And then when I took off, I went to work in California and Oregon, Nevada, and that was a totally different culture and very good experience. And then after being down here, coming back home, and then I used to go down and help a ranch there in Benjamin, Texas. Every year went down there for 5 or 6 years, and spring and fall works, and that was another different culture, and I'm glad I got to experience all of it, for sure.
It probably helped you later on in life to see a lot of that different things and be around a lot of that different culture, probably.
Oh, for sure, you bet. And a guy learns that if you get to thinking you're pretty handy in a new spot, there's somebody there to embarrass you.
Well, there's a lot of different ways of doing things.
Oh,
It's
exactly.
not necessarily they're wrong. They're just different and they all work.
Exactly.
That's something you have to learn, I'm sure.
Well, even in steer roping, the Wyoming guys and some of the Oregon guys and the Oklahoma guys, they all had a little bit different style. But, I think a lot of it was the guys that they patterned themselves after in that local area. They're totally different people from a totally different area. So why would everybody be exactly the same?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, yeah, just different ways to get the same job.
Right.
Exactly. So, Jay, when did you look at a piece of rawhide braiding and you look at it and it intrigued you enough to maybe think that, hey, I want to maybe start doing that one of these days?
Well, when I was growing up, my granddad always did a lot of leather work and made leather belts and wallets and purses for everybody in the family, for sure, if not the county. And I was always around him in his shop. And then I had an uncle, Mike Burkhart. You might have known Mike, that Jimbo, but Mike always did a little bit of leather work, and I always thought I needed to be like Mike Burkhart. So anyway, I got interested in looking some of the stuff he had made, and he helped me with a little. And then when I was 15, Charlie Chambers showed me how to make a quirt. How to cut a quirt out with a pocket knife, and just got started right then when I was about 14 or 15. And
We got one of Charlie's quirts hanging up right here in the museum.
oh yes,
That he
sir.
made.
Yeah, he's made a bunch of them.
Oh yeah. He's made a heck of a lot of them. Maybe not quite as many as you though. Maybe not as
Well,
many as you.
I don't know. I bet he has.
He probably has. You see a lot of them around. I see a lot of them around.
You do. Yeah.
Did you just start making them to use yourself or to give to your friends, or when did it kind of become a business?
Well, I just made stuff off and on. When I was working on ranches, I'd make gear on the side, ride some outside horses and shoe horses and braid a little bit of rawhide here and there. And when I was working out west in Oregon, Nevada, and California, and that country, well, there's a lot of guys out there that braid. And which leads me up to when I was 15. Charlie had showed me how to make a quirt, and I had the opportunity to go spend a week with a man in Oregon that had been braiding for 30 or 40 years, and a man named Frank Hansen, and which we were friends, for many years, and he really did help me out and show me how to cut up a cowhide and kind of sent me on my way. From going to, Charlie's teaching me how to make a quirt wool, and Frank really taught me how to cut up a cowhide and make rietas and reins and you name it. So, anyway, I got to give a lot of thanks to him. And but anyway, I've always did it on the side, here and there. And I quit a ranch job a couple of years back and had backed up 4 or 5 years and thought I'd just spend the winter getting caught up, and I just keep getting further behind.
Yeah,
so
well, that's good.
What we're going to do, I guess.
Where did rawhide braiding get its start in this country? Do you know?
Oh gosh,
was it the Spaniards or maybe?
Maybe over here with Spaniards, but most of the rawhide in this early day, this part of the world had a Mexican influence.
Okay.
And you get further west, which it's Mexican too, but it's the history of rawhide braiding into an art is more of a West Coast
I see.
kind of thing.
What's the first item you sold?
I was actually a rawhide quirt sold to a good buddy of mine that was working up at Chapman Barnard's, and anyway, like I say, I was about 15, and I think I sold it to him for $75, and it fell apart, and he still hadn't forgot it.
Well, you wasn't supposed to use it. It was just for putting on the wall.
Yeah, that was a man named Les Rexroth that worked up at Chapman Barnard's before he took off and went back out west.
So he liked to give you a hard time about that.
He probably tells about these Okies don't know how to braid rawhide.
Did you tell him you're just a little rough on equipment?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rawhide braiding. So, Jay, you don't do this the typical way that most folks do. Ordering the rawhide string just in a spool. So when you tell me you're out skinning a cow, can you just tell me exactly what you're doing right there, or is it just what it sounds like?
Well,
You're out skinning a cow,
right? Ideally, not ideally. It's unfortunate anybody to lose a cow, but I've got neighbors and buddies around. If they do have a cow that's down or they lose a yearling or something, they'll call me and we can go skin them and gather up a hide and then I dehair them and stretch them in a frame and we cut all our string and so forth.
How do you dehair them?
I've used everything from hardwood ash, or you can scrape a hide that's already dried out, scrape the hair off.
You have to scrape both sides too, don't you? Get all the flesh off and everything?
Well, you need to at some point,
right.
Yes, sir. But we'll dehair them, and I've used lime or hardwood ash to dehair in and let them dry out, and then you got something to work with.
How long does it take to dry them?
This time of year, if it's 70 degrees, it'd take 4 or 5 days on a big hide. Smaller hide won't take that long.
And do you have to soften it back up to cut it, or
just soak it?
Soak it in water.
Soak it in water and get it cased up. You might soak a cowhide for 3 or 4 hours, put them in a plastic bag, and they'll cut up like a good piece of leather.
Yeah.
But that's the thing working with rawhide that's different than leather, is that you've got to have your moisture content just right. And you got to know when you can cut it, when you can braid it, and just having everything just right to work for you. Makes it, it's a challenge.
Right. Well, just like anything else, there's a skill to it.
Oh, right. Anything worth doing.
Right. Sure.
For sure.
So when you talk about cutting rawhide string, how big is a rawhide string? Is it as big as this?
I might cut
this cable here.
Oh, well, I might start out cutting pieces a 1/2 inch wide, 200 or 300 foot long, and then go back and cut finer strings out of that. Just depends on what you need. Typically, something that small, 8/16 of an inch might be out of a calf or a yearling hide, something a little tighter grained. But anyway, it just depends, on what you need it for.
Okay.
What do you use? What kind of tool do you use to cut it with?
I just use a knife and a draw gauge to cut mine, and then I've got a string cutter I use that Frank Hansen, the man in Oregon I stayed with, designed years ago and sold many of them, and that's what I've used for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, where you can split them and cut them and bevel them and kind of get what you're looking for.
We'll throw a little picture reel at the end of the video of some of Jay's stuff and some of the things we're talking about, so people can get a good visual of what we're talking about, Jimbo, for sure.
Right, because I don't understand all the terminology of what some of that's what we call a whip. You might call something else,
Oh, right, right. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's a lot of different
Right.
terminologies that might confuse a guy.
Traditionally, talking about the quirt, you see a lot of cowboys and a lot of Frederick Remington paintings and bronzes and Charlie Russell, things like that. And the quirt's pretty iconic in all of it. I've never really personally used one, but, what was that traditionally carried for, Jay?
Oh, they're originally carried to swat a bucking horse. Like if one was bucking, you could slap them in the nose with it and get their head up. Well, you've got to have some ability to get that done for sure. I was better just carrying them, slapping my leg with it. Really.
Yeah, back before they whispered to those horses and stuff, those old cowboys, they saddled them up in a little round pen, had a quirt, and they'd lope them around that pen a few times, and then they'd open the gate, take them to the pasture, and didn't care what they did at that point,
That's right.
It's a little different.
It's a little different nowadays.
Yeah, right.
A little bit different. But that's the way they did it then.
Right. They didn't have time for all, they had a bunch of horses to break, and that's just the way they did it.
Yes, sir.
I would like to I've seen the old pictures of the old cowboys when they're gathering up the remuda, and somehow there's this rope laying on the ground, and then a cowboy pulls it, and it all stands up right around the horses, and they go to catching their horse somehow. Have you seen that, Jay?
Oh, yeah. Well, that reminded me of like when I was working in Oregon, big outfit up there, which they had in their cavy. They might have, which it's a cavy up there, it's remuda down here, but they might have over 100 head of horses, and all their horses are broke to line up abreast on a rope all the way around, where they could, get within a hula hand distance right behind them and catch whatever horses they wanted. And other places are different, and that made me think of like in Texas, Arizona, guys might gather around holding 30-foot ropes in their, on each side of them, and where they can gather their horses up and get them caught.
Speaking of ropes, rietas. What's the trick to roping with them? I've roped my whole life. Have you picked up one of these rietas, Jimbo?
Never have.
Well, it's totally not like any rope you ever felt. I can tell you like that right now.
Well,
it's very, very foreign to someone that uses a regular rope.
Right.
When you pick up one of these rietas. So what's the secret to rieta roping?
They've got a lot of life in them, and usually using a lot bigger loop and throwing a good bit further, than you would with a 35-foot nylon rope. And then again, they feel great. They'd probably feel like a really lively poly. Is that sound accurate to you? Any of them you've felt?
Well, no, I've told you that I can't swing a rieta, so it does not feel like any poly that I've ever felt, and it wouldn't feel like anything you've ever felt either. If you can rope with one of these, and especially like the vaqueros doing the trick roping with them and things like that, my hat's off to those guys, because it's definitely probably the hardest rope to master, I would have to say, Jimbo.
We've all seen those videos of Mexicans that horse be running by them, and they'll 4-foot him, look like they throw it 50 feet, and 4-foot him or whatever, and stuff, and they're using those ropes. So some people can use them. Somebody can use them.
But they've got a lot of life, and a lot of weight too for their size. They got a little more weight to them, but you have to use them like fly fishing. You could rope a cow or a bull with them and handle them, but they won't take a sudden jerk. You got to dally on a slick horn, and if something hits the end of it, you got to let your rope run good, a bit to keep from breaking one. But it is an art, and I'm not a master of that art by any means using one. But I know some guys that are, and they're fun to watch.
Where do they primarily use those at now, Jay?
Oh, they have. There's a lot of guys that still use rietas, branding or on a day-to-day basis, and they've got to having some rieta-only roping in some of the western states, California and Oregon, Nevada, out in that country. They'll have some rieta-only ropings, which are just like a ranch roping, only using rawhide rietas.
So that's why they're so long, is so you can use the slick horn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, 35-foot rieta is not going to get you very far.
It's not very big rieta.
No, it's...
What's the longest one you ever made?
Well, I just braided one that's about 74 foot. Might be the longest. No, I take that back. I braided one 80 here quite a few years ago.
An 80-footer?
80-footer.
Where'd it go to?
It was one of them that went to that Monty Walsh, the movie. Oh, Tom Selleck.
Oh, wow. Monty Walsh, the movie. You made the rietas for that movie, and Tom Selleck?
Yes, sir. I was contacted by Gary Dunshee, who runs that Big Ben saddlery there in Alpine, Texas, that does a lot of work with Tom Selleck, and so he got me hooked up to make those, and I think I ended up making 6 of them, I believe, for Tom Selleck when it was all said and done.
Was that the only products you made for movie guys?
Well, I believe till here recently.
Okay.
With sold one to a quirt to be used in the movie being made here.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon. Sturgill Simpson.
Henry Grammer.
Wow,
that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was a neat guy to meet.
Yeah, that was a fun day over there, selling Sturgill.
Oh,
yes,
your
sir. House probably.
Yes, sir.
So the TCA, the Traditional Cowboy Artists Association, is that it?
Yeah, or Traditional Cowboy Artists Association of America. Yeah, yes, sir.
What exactly is this?
It was more or less set up. They had 5 or 6 founding members that started the association 20 years ago, made up of saddle makers, bit and spur makers, rawhide braiders, silversmiths, and they set it up to promote Western craftsmanship, and it's turned into a pretty big deal and been very successful. And they have scholarship programs for people wanting to learn more and spend time with some of the members, and anyway, it's a neat group of guys that I feel honored to be part of.
To be considered to be part of that group of guys, is there any particular way you got to make your stuff to start off with to even be in the running?
Well, you apply to get in. You'll send some of your work to the fellow members, or to the members. I wasn't a fellow member, but anyway, you send your work in there to apply, and then they'll give you a personal interview, whatnot, and then vote whether you're going to get in or not. So anyway, and then there's a lot of obligations, being part of that. You have to have stuff made for the show and go to a couple meetings a year, and and then be willing to teach people, which is enjoyable, really is. Helping, make sure this craft doesn't die, and to help teach others, anybody interested in it.
So, this TCA, what are you, the Oklahoma representative? How many people are in this group of cowboy artists?
Well, I believe there's 11 or 12 now, out of all the saddle makers, bit and spur makers, silversmiths, rawhide braiders, but there's...
Oh, so he's a little more than just the Oklahoma representative. So.
Yeah, there's four rawhide braiders at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that makes up about a third of the group, rawhide braiders right now.
Sounds like it. Is it you said not let it die out? Is it growing, or I see a lot on Facebook, mostly stuff you posted, where there's quite a bit of people there. You just got back from Montana, and stuff.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, the interest is growing.
That's what I meant.
There really is. I know on the rawhide and braiding end of things, there's a lot of people that seem to have gotten interested in it in the last few years.
Right.
And I go to, Nate Wald he's one of the TCA members in Montana, rawhide braiders, and he had the deal in Montana, which was great, and took in, and myself and Leland Hensley participated with Nate up at that deal, and I think he had 26, 27 people there, to spend 3 days, just working on whatever they wanted to work on, and it's really enjoyable. Well, I'm going to another one next week in Pendleton, Oregon.
So these are like students, they come to work with the best of the best, I guess, to hone their craft with you guys?
Well, yeah, it's, yes, sir, that's what they do. And then I'll go into another one next week in Pendleton, Oregon. Same kind of deal. It's not a TCA function, but it's set up the same way. There'll be 30 people there, interested in the same deal.
So is it a lot of straight beginners that never did a rawhide braiding, or is it a lot of people that are fairly probably accomplished in it? So it's all the above.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Anybody that's interested in it?
All levels, yes, sir.
I didn't know if you had to apply to go to one of the schools. So
I don't think you do. I don't know what the qualifications are to get in one of their programs. They give some scholarships. That people apply for. You could apply as a silversmith, saddle maker, rawhide braider, and then they'll only award the group as a whole will vote on who gets the scholarship.
Do most people order the rawhide, or do they skin the cow like you do, or?
Well, it just depends. I'm pretty fortunate, to be able to get all the hides I need.
Right.
Just right here locally. But there's some people that braid that have to go to the packing house.
Right.
And then there's a lot of people that just buy rawhide somewhere else.
Right.
Which is fine too. Just whatever you can do.
Yeah. Right. Well, what preference do you have as far as old cow, bull, longhorn steer, calf?
An old cow that has to stand twice to make a shadow.
Yeah.
Makes really good rawhide for me.
Yeah.
Sure does.
It's interesting.
He's at did you tell me one time you had a stillborn calf hide you made something out of?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I've had a bunch of them.
So what?
Well, that would
what would you make out of something like that?
Some of the small buttons you see on the stuff we have in there, the little buttons on the reins, quirts, just real fine detail work where you're cutting, maybe 16th to 32nd of an inch string would usually have to come from a calf hide like that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be stillborn, but baby calf is really good hide. And unfortunately, we can't save all of them.
Or at least we can do something with them.
Yeah. When you're working with a small hide like that, or even a big hide, and you're making a long rope, how do you hide the splices?
The best thing's not have any.
But when you have a 80-foot rope, you've got to have,
No, not necessarily.
Really?
I've been wondering when he was telling me he was
I guess
cutting an
you just
80-foot
go-
string, but I was wondering how it wasn't a curved string by the time he got done. So.
I thought it had to be straight, but you're curving
Yes,
and
sir.
using and keeping it all one piece if
Yes,
you
sir.
can.
You can cut round and around the hide, and you could cut 600-foot string out of a hide
Yeah.
if you wanted to,
Well,
if you cut it small enough. But
Well, I'm glad we
that's how
asked that because
works.
I was feeling dumb earlier when he was telling me
I
he
feel
was
dumb now
cutting.
for asking it, but
And
that
then
makes sense.
Like if I was going to braid a standard Rieta, say 60-foot, 65-foot 4-strand rope, I would need four strings of rawhide, each 90 foot long. And then it's like, well, how do you keep them untangled? But you have to put them in what they call a tamale bundle with a plastic bag over
Hey,
it.
I can do just a 3-plat over here.
Right.
And I got a big old mess right behind me if I got a very long
Right.
piece of string, Jimbo. So I can only imagine with 80 foot of rawhide cord.
I remember probably in the 70s when that parachute cord really got popular, the colors and stuff, and I thought I was doing pretty good to make a 3-strand set of bridle range, But this is a whole nother level for sure.
Did you ever have one of them parachute braided cord belts, Jay?
Oh, yes,
With the long
sir.
tail on it?
You bet, absolutely.
I'm just wondering. You hadn't seen any of them in a
Bull
while.
rider.
Right.
Oh, I know.
You haven't seen any of them in a while.
Oh, yeah, we used to have those.
Okay.
Multicolored.
You wasn't a bull rider unless you had one.
Exactly.
On those quirts, it looks like, is there a core in those?
Yes, sir.
What's it made of?
It's primarily, about everything I make with a core in it has rawhide.
Okay, so it's a rawhide
Yes,
core.
sir. Like if it was a tapered quirt, big at the top end, small at the other, it'd have a twisted rawhide core in it. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So when you're tapering it, you just stop braiding one of them at the end and somehow it just blends in perfectly. You don't even see it.
Oh, yeah. You try to anyway.
You probably see more imperfections than probably anybody, really.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't think I've ever made anything I was completely satisfied with.
So, you mentioned bull riding a while ago. We've talked. We talk about rodeo all the time, whether it's bronc riding or some steer roping or just some horse we saw at some point somewhere. So, what kind of rodeo career did you ever have, Jay?
Well, I rodeoed just very little, just a little in high school. Got on some broncs in Wyoming, and then anyway, and I didn't rodeo much after that till ranch rodeos, and went to quite a few of those over the years. A lot of ranch rodeos and rode broncs in ranch rodeos, and that's about as far as my rodeo career went.
That's pretty Western, rawhide braiding,
Riding
riding.
broncs, right.
right there. To me, that's pretty Western right there, Jimbo.
It sure is.
And that makes me think of, I mentioned Mike Burkhart, my uncle. Mike was a cowboy and never pulled leather in his life, ever. And, I thought I was really doing something and could ride these broncs and these ranch rodeos with a night latch. And the best Mike Burkhart ever gave me was just shaking his head like, why are you doing that two-handed?
Because you can.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, because I didn't have three.
Yeah, because you needed to.
Because you can.
Yeah.
So a lot of cowboy makers, craftsmen, they don't like their stuff being considered art. They like their stuff to be used every day. I know a couple old guys, they won't even sell it to you if you're going to hang it on the wall. What's your stance on that?
Oh, I try to make 3 different categories of stuff. You got your using cowboy stuff, show stuff that you might see in the show pen and the working cow horse, and then collector stuff, which you call it art or whatever you want to call it. You could use it if you wanted to, but there's some that just gets hung on the wall. But I'd rather see my stuff hanging on a horse for sure.
What's the advantage of using a Bozell compared to a bit?
Well, it's a different. It takes a lot more time making a hackamore horse, where a horse would go longer through more training before they ever packed a bit. And there's some advantage to that, and there's some the disadvantage is it takes longer, and in this in this high speed world we live in, you don't see it as much, anymore. But it's still popular in a lot of places where they'll ride a hackamore, horse till they're 3 or 4 years old, before they ever go to packing a bit. But and anyway, and I make a lot of those, fortunately for that go to the show pen, the National Rein Cow Horse Association, working cow horse guys that use them a lot, and I like to see that.
There's some horse shows that you have to carry one of the Rietas and use the rawhide reins. I forget what the name of them are.
Oh, the reins and Romel.
The reins are Romel. Okay, reins and Romel. You got it. He teaches me this stuff every time. What kind of horse shows do they use all that traditional stuff in?
There's you used to only see it out west in horse shows and guys riding bridle horses, which they still do out west, but you're seeing it a lot more in the ranch horse competitions in this part of the world, using the reins and Romel. And I tell you what, if you're going to show a horse riding with the rein and Romel, I mean, they got a ride right there. You can't reach down and one rein or a horse around. They got to be broke, and I think it's done nothing but improve things. But it's
do they use primarily spade bits with those types of reins?
Oh yeah, not necessarily. Out west, they might have a.
In my mind, I'm thinking spade bits for some reason, but
they might ride any kind of spade, half breed, any kind of West Coast mouthpiece, but you can go to Abilene, Texas, to the ranch horse finals, and you might see a set of reins and Romel on a Billy Clapper or John Israel bit, which you would have never seen that 20 years ago. It's
What's the strangest thing anybody's ever asked you to make?
Oh boy. Probably the most common off the wall thing might be like a dog leash, something like that.
You make a product now and sell it. What is this?
Oh, we're making a rawhide and leather conditioner. Yes, sir. And I'd been making it and using it myself the last several years, and anyway, we started making some up, and passing out here and there, and getting some guys to try, and it seems to be everybody seems to be pretty satisfied with it.
So it's the J. Adcock Rawhide Cream.
Yes, J. Adcock Rawhide and Leather Conditioner. Yes, okay, sir.
It's available right here at the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, and I suppose they can get a hold of Jay on Facebook. He may have a site for it to order it. It's really, really good to use on your rawhide products. Makes it just soft and supple, like Jay says.
Sir. Yes, sir, it does. It really brings a lot of stuff back to life. Dried out saddle or dry leather or rawhide. It makes a real good conditioner, waterproofer, boots, shoes, you name it.
How long will this rawhide last if it's taken care of halfway decent?
Oh, forever.
Just forever.
Oh, yes, sir. If it's taken care of, it sure will.
If we ordered something from you today, how long does it take to deliver?
Oh, I'm about a year out now.
So if I order something from you today, I might have it in a year or so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's a year out. Yeah. I thought he might be 5 years out. I wasn't sure, Jimbo.
Well, a year, though, that's pretty good job security. A year.
I'd take it for anything.
Yeah, right.
A year's worth of anything, for sure. I never know where the next day's coming for me. Every day's a whirlwind. Well, Jay, when you started your first quirt with Charlie Chambers, did you ever picture yourself showing with one of the most elite bunch of cowboy artists, craftsmen in the world on top of it all at the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, some of the most hallowed ground, especially if you're a cowboy?
No, sir. Not at the time. No, I would never thought that. I sure hadn't, I'm honored, but at the time I would have never thought that. She would know. I'd been tickled at the time just to be able to make a quirt just like Charlie did.
Yep. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but when you think about this, Jay, there's probably not a bigger showing for your line of work than having your stuff for sale at a show at the Cowboy Hall of Fame. Yes,
sir. Yeah, like I say, it's quite an honor, and it's a job too. You got to get it made before you can put it in there.
I know you can't show us any pictures or anything, but you got to work. Are you making anything special? Do you got to work with any other artists? You were telling me something that you got to collaborate.
Oh, you
with
don't
some
have
of the other
to collaborate,
artists? Okay.
but yes, sir. Me and Wilson Capron and I are collaborating on a deal, and this is going to be pretty special. Something I'd never done before, nor Wilson, I believe, and we're pretty tickled about that, and then collaborating with John Willemsma, who's a saddle maker in there as well, and. Anyway, it's going to be fun, and we're going to put some sneak peeks of stuff out here shortly.
We're all looking really, really forward to it. Real forward to it. Seeing that stuff. Jimbo? Jay, I got one more thing for you before I hand it to Jimbo here. You got a daughter, little Ella. She's a handful. She spends a lot of time at our house with my handful of daughters being bad influences on her. But have you been teaching her any of this?
Oh, yes, sir. She's she hadn't been learning as much as I'd like for her to learn, but she is a really good critic. She can spot my mistakes a mile away when she walks in the shop.
She probably does
if a braid's straight. And I've taught her to braid just a little bit, and she'd work at it for an hour or two, then she'd decide, well, I'm going to wait till she was going to wait till she's 9. Well, she's 9 now. Well, she's going to wait till she's 11 now. So anyway, she's going to do it. She just she's hard to get to sit still.
She probably knows a lot more about it than you even realize she does. From when you take her out to skin the cows and to stretch the hide, she's there with you, I assume, the whole step of the way, and she probably knows a heck of a lot more than you even give her credit for now.
She does.
She'll be teaching one of your classes here pretty soon.
Maybe so. I hope so.
Jimbo, you got anything for Jay?
Well, just like to thank him for coming in, first thing. But I'd like to tell everybody that words really don't do this stuff justice. You got to come see it, because it's amazing the quality of this braided work that he does and some of the products he makes. So there's a wonderful display here at the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, and you can see his stuff down there at Oklahoma City this fall. But you really need to get out and look at it, hold it, feel it, and it's a really amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good investment for anybody to invest in a piece of this stuff, hang on their wall, use it. You could even whip your kid with the quirt.
Yeah,
you can double use out of it.
That's right.
Kid whooping deal. Well, Jay, we always end asking a question of the guy, and it's usually some advice for people. So I kind of got a two-part question for you. What I want to ask you is, what you do is meticulous. Your finished work is everything, I'd like for you to tell the young people out there how you can be patient enough and meticulous enough to get stuff finished is as beautiful as you do. And then on the backside of that, how important it is to keep the Western way of life alive and your trade alive through future generations, which you're doing for all this teaching you've been doing.
Yes, sir. Well, I would tell young guys to just keep working at it and don't get too frustrated and don't be afraid to start over. You know, there's no need in getting off at Oakland when you're going to Frisco, but you may not get there today. It is important to preserve, you know, our crafts and heritage and keep passing it on down the line, for sure.
It's important to keep our way of life alive so it don't die out for the future generations, for sure. For sure. Well, Jay, I sure appreciate you coming and seeing us today.
Enjoyed it. Appreciate the being here.
You can see us next week right here on Cowboys of the Osage podcast. It's been another good one. Jay Adcock. Thank you, Jimbo.
You're welcome. You got it.
We'll see everybody next week.